When the concert ended, only a handkerchief remained on stage. But that handkerchief had changed a life forever. The silence was deafening. 80,000 people. Not a sound. Michael Jackson's voice had stopped mid-note. The music died. Stage lights blazing. The king of pop standing frozen, staring into the crowd. His sequined glove catching the light. Something in the front row. Something that made the world's biggest superstar forget he was performing. Then he did something no one expected. He walked away from the microphone. But how did we get here? How did the most electrifying performer on earth end up breaking every rule of show business in front of millions? This is the story of one night in 1988 that proved Michael Jackson wasn't just the king of pop. He was something much more human. July 14, 1988. Wembley Stadium, London. The Bad World Tour was at its peak. Michael Jackson had conquered every continent, broken every record, redefined what it meant to be a global superstar. But tonight was different. Tonight, something was about to happen that would remind everyone why they called him the king. The crowd was electric. Fans from every corner of the globe had traveled to witness history. In the front row, behind the barrier, families who had saved for months to be this close to their idol. Among them, 8-year-old Emma Rodriguez sat in her wheelchair, wearing a sparkly replica of Michael's famous jacket. Her parents had driven 12 hours from Spain, hoping beyond hope that somehow, someway, their daughter might catch a glimpse of the man whose music had carried her through 2 years of surgeries and treatments. Emma had been born with spina bifida. The doctors said she'd never walk. But when Billie Jean played, she danced with her hands. When Beat It came on, she sang with everything she had. Michael Jackson wasn't just her favorite artist. He was her escape. Her joy. Her proof that being different didn't mean being less. Backstage, Michael was going through his pre-show ritual. The meditation. The prayer. The moment of silence for all the children in the world who needed hope. His manager, Frank Dilio, was running through the technical details. The pyrotechnics. The costume changes. The choreography that had been rehearsed to perfection. "Everything's set, Michael," Frank said. "The crowd's bigger than we expected. Security's tight. We're ready for magic." Michael nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. It always was before a show. He wasn't thinking about the spectacle. He was thinking about connection. About reaching every single person in that stadium and making them feel less alone. But Michael Jackson had no idea that in just 2 hours, Cumlin Ordesinda Sarkii Solomei cassette. The arena fell into a deathly silence. The show began like every bad tour concert. The lights dimmed. The crowd erupted. Smoke filled the stage. And then, in a burst of light and sound, Michael Jackson appeared. The white socks. The black shoes. The red jacket. Perfection in motion. "Wanna be startin' something?" exploded through the stadium. Michael moved like lightning, every step calculated, every gesture precise. The crowd was mesmerized. This wasn't just a concert. It was a religious experience. Song after song, hit after hit. "The Way You Make Me Feel," "Smooth Criminal," "Rock With You." Each performance was flawless. Each moment choreographed to mathematical precision. But Michael's eyes kept scanning the crowd. Looking for something. Someone. During Human Nature, the tempo slowed. The lights softened. This was when Michael connected most deeply with his audience. He walked to the edge of the stage, reaching out to touch hands in the front row. The crowd pressed forward, desperate for that magical contact. And that's when he saw her. Emma Rodriguez. 8 years old. Wheelchair-bound. Tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness, but pure, overwhelming joy. Her hands were raised, reaching toward him, singing every word with a voice so pure it cut through the noise of 80,000 people. Michael stopped singing. The band continued for a few measures, confused. The backing singers kept going. But Michael Jackson, the most professional performer on earth, had forgotten where he was. He was staring at this little girl who was giving him everything she had, despite everything she couldn't do. He walked to the edge of the stage, knelt down, and something inside him broke open. Subscribe now, because what happens next will restore your faith in humanity. The most powerful moment in music history is about to unfold. Behind the scenes, Michael Jackson was moving with a determination that would shock everyone on his team. The music had stopped. The entire band was looking at each other, uncertain what to do. 80,000 people were holding their breath. Michael's security team was on high alert. This wasn't in the show. This wasn't planned. This was pure instinct. Michael stood up from the edge of the stage and began walking toward the steps that led down to the audience. His security team moved to follow, but he held up his hand. Not tonight. Tonight was different. Frank Delia was frantically trying to figure out what was happening. The cameras were still rolling. This was being broadcast live to millions. Every second of deviation from the script was costing thousands of dollars. But when he looked at Michael's face, he understood. This wasn't about the show anymore. This wasn't about business. This was about something much more important. Michael reached the barrier where Emma sat with her parents. The crowd around them had created a natural circle of respect, sensing they were witnessing something sacred. Emma's mother, Maria, was crying so hard she could barely breathe. Her father, Carlos, was trying to shield his daughter from the chaos, but Emma wasn't looking at the crowd. She was looking at Michael Jackson. And he was looking at her. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Michael asked, his voice barely audible but somehow carrying over the silence of 80,000 people. "Emma," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Emma," he repeated, as if he was memorizing it. "Do you know Billie Jean?" She nodded, unable to speak. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, knelt down in the dirt beside her wheelchair. He took off his famous white glove and placed it gently in her hands. Then he began to sing. Not the full production version. Not the choreographed spectacle. Just his voice. Pure. Raw. Human. "Billie Jean is not my lover." Emma joined in, her voice small but perfect. Two voices, one belonging to the most famous person on earth, the other to a little girl who couldn't walk but was flying. The crowd began to understand what they were witnessing. This wasn't entertainment. This was love. They started singing too. Softly at first, then stronger. 80,000 people singing Billie Jean. Not for themselves, but for Emma. But here's the unbelievable part of this story. The part no one expected. Michael Jackson reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his personal handkerchief. The one he always carried. White silk, with his initials embroidered in gold thread. He had used it to wipe away sweat during 1,000 performances. It was part of his uniform. Part of his armor. He gently wiped the tears from Emma's cheeks. "This is yours now," he said. "Every time you listen to music, every time you sing, remember that you're not different. You're special. And special people change the world." Emma clutched the handkerchief like it was made of diamonds. Her parents were sobbing. The crowd was cheering, but it wasn't the wild screaming of fans. It was the respectful applause of people who knew they had witnessed something holy. Michael stood up and walked back toward the stage. But he turned around one more time. "Emma," he called out. "Will you help me finish the show?" She nodded, still holding the handkerchief. Michael Jackson climbed back onto the stage and picked up his microphone. But when he started singing again, he wasn't performing for 80,000 people. He was singing for one little girl in the front row who had reminded him why he became a performer in the first place. The rest of the concert was different. Looser. More human. Between songs, Michael would look down at Emma and smile. She would wave back with the handkerchief, and each time, his smile got bigger. When the final song ended and the lights went down, Michael Jackson did something he had never done before. He threw his microphone to his crew and walked directly to Emma one last time. "Thank you," he told her. "You made tonight perfect." Share this video and subscribe because this story shows the real Michael Jackson. The man behind the moonwalk. The heart behind the hits. The handkerchief Emma received that night became her most treasured possession. She framed it in her bedroom, and every morning when she woke up, she saw those embroidered initials MJ and remembered what Michael had told her. That being different didn't mean being less. It meant being special. Emma Rodriguez went on to become a Paralympic swimmer, winning 3 gold medals. She credited that night at Wembley as the moment she realized her limitations were just starting points, not endpoints. In every interview, she mentioned the handkerchief. The moment. The man who knelt down in the dirt to sing with her. Michael Jackson never talked publicly about what happened that night. It wasn't a publicity stunt. There were no press releases. No interviews. Just one human being connecting with another human being in the way that mattered most. But the story didn't end there. Word spread through the Michael Jackson fan community about what had happened. Videos circulated. The story was retold thousands of times. And something beautiful began to happen. Other performers started noticing the people in wheelchairs at their concerts. The children in hospital gowns. The fans who had traveled impossible distances to be there. Michael Jackson had started a quiet revolution simply by remembering that stars don't shine for themselves. They shine for others. The handkerchief Emma received that night was tested by experts years later to verify its authenticity. The silk was confirmed to be from Michael's personal collection. The embroidery matched his other personal items. But Emma didn't need verification. She had felt the magic in that moment when the king of pop became just Michael. Just a human being who cared. In 2009, when Michael Jackson passed away, Emma Rodriguez was interviewed by news stations around the world. They wanted to know about her memories, about that night at Wembley. Through her tears, she held up the handkerchief, now faded but still perfect. "He taught me that music isn't about being perfect," she said. "It's about being present. It's about seeing the person right in front of you and making them feel like they matter. That night, I mattered to Michael Jackson. And because of that, I learned to matter to myself." That handkerchief still sits in Emma's home. Her children know the story by heart. They understand that their mother once met greatness, and greatness knelt down to meet her where she was. Michael Jackson's legacy isn't just the music, the dancing, or the records. It's the reminder that the most powerful thing any of us can do is pay attention to each other. To see the person who needs to be seen. To sing with someone who needs to be heard. That night at Wembley Stadium, 80,000 people came to see the king of pop. But they left having witnessed something even rarer. They had seen the heart of a man who understood that true royalty means serving others. The handkerchief may have started as just fabric. But in Emma's hands, it became proof that one moment of genuine human connection can change everything. That sometimes, the greatest performances happen when the performer stops performing and starts being real. When the concert ended that night, only a handkerchief remained on stage where Michael had knelt. But that handkerchief had changed a life forever. Years later, Emma Rodriguez would become a motivational speaker, traveling to schools and hospitals around the world. She would always carry that same white handkerchief with her, now carefully preserved in a clear protective case. When she spoke to children facing their own challenges, she would hold it up and tell them about the night when the king of pop taught her the most important lesson of her life. He could have chosen to stay on that stage, she would tell them. He could have kept the distance that fame creates. But he chose to come down to where I was. He chose to see me as a person, not as a disability. That choice changed everything. The ripple effects of that night continued to spread. Medical professionals who heard Emma's story began incorporating music therapy more actively into their treatment programs. Teachers started using Michael Jackson's example to teach children about empathy and inclusion. Even other celebrities began to follow Michael's lead, making genuine connections with their fans rather than maintaining professional distance. But perhaps most importantly, that handkerchief became a symbol of something that transcends fame, music, or entertainment. It became proof that authentic human connection can happen anywhere, between anyone, if we're willing to step out of our comfort zones and truly see each other. Michael Jackson's music touched millions of lives, but that night at Wembley, his humanity touched one little girl in a way that created waves of inspiration that are still spreading today. The handkerchief Emma received wasn't just a piece of fabric, it was a tangible reminder that kindness, when it comes from genuine love and recognition of our shared humanity, has the power to transform lives in ways that last forever. And sometimes, changing one life is exactly how you change the world.